something that's very prevalent what I've been talking to people.
When I hear business owners say they're trying, more often than not, it means they're expending a lot of effort into something that they actually don't have a clear outcome as far as what they want to receive from that effort. And trying produces a lot of trying. We were testing, like we were testing different strategies and being curious as to like what is actually producing results versus the energy of trying, because trying feels very trying. So
True, yeah.
when I hear it in other business owners' language, typically it's around like they're doing all of this stuff, but there's a belief system behind it that's making it harder on actually creating those results.
Let me invite you to sit back, drop your jaw, tongue, and shoulders, take a deep breath, and if you wish, close your eyes for a moment. In a few seconds, you just jumped from head to heart, opening up to receive even more value and fulfillment out of your business and life. And today's episode. I'm your host, Nico van der Venne, confidant to successful CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs, striving to achieve everlasting fulfillment. Welcome to the Everlasting Podcast.
And I would love to welcome our next guest, who is the actual queen of the business. Welcome, Kimberly. Hi, welcome.
Nico, I'm so excited to be on. I am so grateful to be on this show, and just we had such a phenomenal conversation before. I'm so grateful to Ben Albert who introduced us, and
shout out to Ben. Great guy.
I know, shout out to Ben, big time. And it's all about those beautiful connections that are leveraged. That is the power of podcasting.
Yep. And you're the podcasting queen, and you do a lot of stuff. So go right ahead and reveal your lifetime mission and stuff that you're doing, because you're doing so many amazing things.
Yeah, so I have two businesses. I've had my Crown Yourself coaching business for 9 years, where I help leaders build their empire and stand out fearlessly in where they have inner and outer congruence, both with what they say that they want and then actually going for what it is that they want and building the systems and structures that they need to support themselves. And then from that, a second business along with a second baby was birth. I mean, because when you have one child, like twins was always in my future. I just birthed the business and the baby at the same time. And I birthed Communication Queens, which is our podcast guesting agency, where we strategically match CEOs and founders with the podcasts that build their brand awareness and their bottom line.
That's amazing and very interesting, because I find, you're just saying this, kind of casually, two companies, two babies and stuff like that. But the reason that you started your podcasting casting or scheduling business is an amazing reason, because there's a very big story behind that. And I would love you to tell that story.
Yeah. So we primarily before that, my main source of lead generation was live events. I had this saying that when I'm live, I thrive, and I just naturally I gravitate toward people. My intuition is like a spidey sense where I'm like, oh, this person could be a great conversation, and then it turns into becoming a client. So it was just I had that natural intuitive ability. But then fast forward to 2020, not only were live events not happening, I was also stuck in a foreign country. I was one of those Americans who got stuck abroad, and me and my family were stuck in Australia, and we had packed for 3 weeks. We ended up staying for 2 years. And while we were over there, I was like, okay, my husband and I said, how long could this last? We liked how Australia was kind of handling things. And so we thought, oh, this will only be like maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months. Remember, 2 weeks to stop the spread, and it turned into 2 years. And from that, I was like, okay, well, my husband's industry had completely shut down. And I was like, I knew I needed to still bring in new business revenue. We had solid recurring business revenue, but I knew new is always great too. And so I was thinking back to what what forms of lead generation could I do, since not only could I not do live events because of COVID, but I couldn't do live events because of my visa. Like, I couldn't
Yeah.
actually technically be working in the country. So
Okay. Yeah.
so I had my online business since 2018. And then because of that, I remembered a podcast interview that I had done in like 2019 that had resulted in a $10,000 coaching contract. And I was like, what if we double down on that? So fast
Hmm.
forward 50 interviews and $70,000 of new business revenue later, I was like, I think I'm onto something. And now we've generated over $250,000 for my coaching company
Cool.
because of podcast guesting and the power of just building the relationships with podcasters and the visibility that that provides.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's an amazing tool. I'm kind of one of these people who writes with AI. I'm gonna, put it out there. These days, it's like you got people start spanking you on the bottom for it. You use AI and this and that. But I'm like, yeah, something is itching. Sorry, but it's just amazing how easy it is. But on the other side, I'm like, I still want to be authentic. I still want to be the
Mhm.
me. And podcasting really gives you that platform of showing who you really are, because okay, we don't use video in this case. I use audio only, but in the future we'll probably change that. But at this point, I'm like, you can have conversations that are very valuable, not only
Mhm.
for your audience but also for yourself, because you meet so many different kind of people, and it's cross global. There's no boundary in podcasting, and that's
Mhm.
one of the things that I love about it. See how we met. It's like two jumps. One guy in New York. Let's a guy in Belgium and a beautiful lady in Austin meet each other, and it's like, wow, okay, this is in
Right?
my agenda. What?
Yeah, it's global, and it's I mean, just the power of connectivity and the the medium itself. It plays to 66% of people who listen to podcasts are higher educated.
Mhm.
66% of people who listen to podcasts also are making higher income, so typically over $100,000 or more per
Mhm.
year. So you have a highly educated, affluent audience that also tunes in on average for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So compare that to social media of 2 seconds
Hmm.
of scrolling, and it
Yeah.
blows it out of the water. And the
True.
beautiful thing is, so you're targeting to an audience, you're speaking to an audience that has money, that can dive deep on a topic and wants to dive deep on a topic, because 3 out of 4 people tune into podcasts to learn something new. And
Yeah.
so as I started researching these statistics for not only for our agency, but also for my book that's coming out in August, Make Every Podcast Want You, How to Become So
Mhm.
Radically Interesting, You'll Barely Keep from Interviewing Yourself. Um,
Okay.
those a
That goes
shameless
on the list.
those statistics, like I'm like, no wonder podcasting works for client generation, no matter
Mhm.
what your industry is. I mean, we now have clients from celebrants to bookkeepers to like multi-million dollar coaches to construction workers to um like, just it runs the gambit. And
Mhm.
consistently we're still seeing that if you apply the principles of marketing, which from a good-hearted, generous place, not like I always tell all my clients, do not go on podcasts to like try to make a one-to-one sale of like converting the host. That's not why they're having you on their show, and that's gross.
Mhm.
Yes, it can happen, but it's a natural evolution to demonstrating that you show that you can solve a problem for them. And
Mhm.
so it's this ability to just have a conversation, to build that intimacy in a relationship. And
Mhm.
I think of a podcast like a first date. Like,
Well, yeah, it's a good comparison. That's true. Yeah.
yeah. So
So
thanks for
what
the
do you do
first
on a
date.
first date?
I like
Without what
long
you
walks on the beach.
So this is going somewhere? Well, a date can be so many different things. You can just meet
Exactly.
somebody business-wise on a first date. I did first dating on business level at some point, and that was fun because you met so many people. And it was online. I think it was kind of the end of COVID, where you had
Mhm.
these coffee sit-ins.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole concept was get yourself a cup of coffee, plan a conversation of like 20 minutes with somebody online in Zoom or whatever, and you just, it wasn't a specific topic or whatever. It was kind of, first dating another person who did business. And then I met people that were doing stuff. I was amazed. This one guy he was going to climb Kilimanjaro. That was a
Yes.
plan. He was going to do it right before COVID, so he had to hold the whole thing back. And then a couple of weeks later, he actually did it. And I kind of followed him doing his story, and he got injured, and then he had to go back, and there was a whole story behind that. But that half an hour with him was just amazing. It's the same thing with a podcast. You start talking about something. I always have these questions planned, but it always goes somewhere completely different, and that's the fun part. You have to kind of have a structure and kind of know where you're going with this, but it's not necessary. You're just here to give good content and be honest, be you. It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, talking about first dates, this is our second date, so
I know.
we can go further than this. Um, is my wife
What
around?
is the business version of a third date? Is that conversion?
Let's talk again in 6 months. Well, this so you got your first business, which has been running for a while, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, and then you started off with this second business in a completely different country, because, be honest, Australia, US, they are different countries. Very big, different backgrounds. One of the backgrounds isn't that positive because the relationship wasn't that good, but something happened in the 1700s somewhere that disconnected the colonies. But if you look at that and the struggle that you had at the time, what was one of the biggest challenges you kind of met at the time that you decided to say, okay, I'm going to do this podcast thing?
Yeah. So, I mean, we were playing at that point with every type of strategy. So we doubled down on doing 20-minute calls. We doubled down on content production. We've had our own podcast, the Crown Yourself podcast, since 2019. And so we were trying all those, and we tried podcast guesting. And the biggest struggle was building the system and finding the right podcast, because 90% of podcasters don't make it past 10 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So finding the ones that are actually qualified, that actually fit, and there's a rapport and a mutual values. And what I mean is, like, I'm happy to go on a podcast. It's a brand new podcast. Happy to. I also like to make sure that that person has had an established business career. It doesn't matter the industry, that demonstrates that they are a professional with a commitment, consistency, similar values that our company has. So figuring that out were the moving pieces, along with doing that in a foreign country, moving 3 times, and having a child and having a 3-year-old, figuring out, like, oh, we can put, because of where we were, we could put him in school, so we put him in school, and then had another baby. So
what else would you do in the meantime?
What else would you do? And I didn't start my podcasting agency until I got back into the States. I just started teaching it as a part of my curriculum for coaching, because I was already doing high performance business coaching, and I added it in. And then I was like, kind of getting obsessed with it, of like, oh my gosh, this is like, guys, like, you have to realize, like, this is so like an evangelist for guest podcasting. And my social media manager, she was like, the branding is getting diluted between what you preach in Crown Yourself and what you teach in podcasting. And I was like, oh, you're right. Because I was like, Crown Yourself is we teach mindset principles, NLP, high performance habits, and like how to apply those into your business. And so I was like, yeah, you're right. The brand is getting diluted, and I wasn't staying true to the core purpose of Crown Yourself. And that was when I realized, like, okay, we're going to do this and have a second business, because it actually happened after 2 failed course launches.
Okay.
Like, I launched the course initially. Yeah, I launched the course, was successful launch. And then it just started to like dwindle, and then dwindle again. And I asked my audience, I was like, guys, I deliver, like, so what's going on? What is it? They're like, the response overwhelmingly was, we don't want to learn how to do it and put the team and the infrastructure into place. We just want someone to do it for us. And so that was when I looked at my team and I was like, can we? So it wasn't until I got back to California, because also the hard part was in that year of 2021, we launched the course. We had the successful launch. My father passed. I had a baby. I had 2 other family members pass. And then we moved back from Australia to the States to support my mom because she lost her husband, her sister, and her mom in 1 year.
Wow. Okay.
And so we came back and had estates to wrap up as well. And I will be honest, like my self-leadership was like, I didn't know how to lead through grief. And especially that level of grief, because it wasn't just it wasn't just those 3 family members. I also lost 2 family friends. Like my dad's best friend died randomly and suddenly, and then one of my childhood friends who is 28 years old, and probably that one hit me just as hard as my
Talk
dad.
about turmoil.
Yeah, so it was definitely a crucible year, and I was so grateful that we still grew our business and grew our profits 35%. But then in 2022, they just tanked because I was not in a space mentally. And honestly, looking back and also looking forward, because it's not like any of us are going to escape death. But in that space, it's giving me a lot of perspective of like, it really does take some time, especially when it's a close family member, to give yourself that space in your business and let somebody else run the show. And I have a great team. I didn't have a COO in place, and I didn't have an integrator to the visionary. I had a great operation manager. I had great team members, but I saw a lot of holes in my own delegation process that we're filling now, which is great because that was such an awakening moment. And also a preparedness moment, because, someday, God forbid, not in the near future, but I think I'm done with death for a little while, hopefully.
Keep it a little bit quiet down there.
Well, I'm good with keeping it quiet, but it's not like any of us are going to escape that. And so like prepping ahead for, any unforeseen circumstances and how I would deal with that in the future, and kind of like putting a protocol into place also for my team as well, making sure that like, if somebody that's close to them passes, giving them the space so that they know that they still have a job to come back to, and that they also have the grace of their performance being what it is under grief.
Wow.
So it gave me a lot of insight. I'm so grateful for the crucible of the past year, or of 2021, 2022. And then like moving to Austin really was re-solidifying and starting to build an entirely new foundation. And because we uprooted my mom, brought her with us to Texas. She's now our granny and loves it. Got her a buyout for her business that she had with my dad. And that really set this new paradigm up for us. And so it's the internal infrastructure that I really had to work on the most, of what that looks like. Because especially if you've ever had a parent pass, there's certain, and I had a conversation with another really great men's coach, Michael, and I can't pronounce his last name. It starts with an H. But he said, like, do you think you'd be as open and as vulnerable as you are now, like before your father had passed? And I was like, yeah, I do, but it was different. Because you have, with a parent especially, you have all of those expectations. You have all of those beliefs. You have all of those hopes. You have all of the negative things. I mean, my dad was one of my greatest influences, both positive and negative, because he was an addict for 30 years. So like that was trying at many times. But so the experience of no longer having that in my life, it really opened up a void for me. So that was the biggest thing of going through that void to decide, who am I going to be in this space now that I no longer have this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because there was, there's the sadness and the grief of him being gone, but there's also the freedom of like not feeling I need to rescue him, of not needing to race him to the hospital because we think he's having a stroke, but really he's really drunk. Not needing to take him down to rehab for opioid addiction. Like, all of these pieces were no longer like, that was such an integral part of my life for 33 years. Like, and suddenly it was no more. So I feel like an entirely new identity was birthed. And becoming a newborn gets a little shaky.
Can imagine. Well, you actually proved it. Yeah, indeed. But it's amazing what steps you've had to take. It's in so many different levels. Okay, and private life is the major story here. But on the other side, business wise, seeing what is going on, and the effect of what happens in the private area affecting your business, giving you the view of saying, I need somebody in place, to run the place, instead of just having the day-to-day operational story running, but somebody who manages, who understands your strategy, your insights, your creativity, and translates that into your business. And on the other side, you give yourself the opportunity to mourn, to go through those emotions, and actually live the life for a moment with your family, and doing all the moving, and getting babies and all that stuff. You're kind of mixing everything. You don't do anything simple. That's pretty clear. It's very recognizable, by the way. So it's something like, my family kind of knows me for that as well. It's not, I don't do one thing. I do many things all at
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
indeed, yeah.
And I think that's how you're the visionary, like, versus the integrator. And I'm very skilled at operating in the integrator role. But it was in seeing the need, not just the need, the like freaking necessity of that role, so that they can take the whole plan and give that space, so that I could have the space to breathe and to grieve. But I think the visionary, like, the common trait is, you've got a lot of ideas. Ideas are not short with us.
Yeah, it's kind of the implementation side that kind of gives us a challenge there, right? But what I find absolutely beautiful is the fact that you now have a clear vision for your own team on what they could encounter in the future, because like you said, it's unavoidable. It's as simple as that. We have this where I live, we have this insurance that you can start, where they actually, if you would die, they would arrange everything for your family, so the documents and the funeral and all that wonderful stuff that's goes around there. And I think it was a couple of months ago, I was having that conversation with my wife, because my grandmother, she's now gone since January. I think it was 1 week before she turned 101. So she's had a very long life. And last 10 to 15 years, she was mentally gone, so she wasn't really around. But she had a very strange and a very harsh life. She wasn't always the happy person as well towards her own son and stuff like that. But we realized when that happened, and with some other people getting sick in the family, that we needed to arrange a few things. And this insurance is something that it confronts you with reality. I'm a very spiritual person. I believe in a lot of stuff. I believe in everything that happens, that it happens to you because there's a reason, and it's all to help you forward and to help you grow, even the harsh stuff, etc., etc. But then when you confront yourself with these things and start realizing, I am not the person that's going to run everything when something wrong goes wrong, or whatever, somebody else needs to do it because I will not be there. It's something that you need to take in hand, and it's leadership. It's personal leadership to its essence, to my mind, where you say, these are steps that I need to take because it is inevitable. It will happen. And as long as the people staying behind are helped in an easy way, that's the most important thing. So You were talking earlier as well about a wonderful word that I love hearing, which is trying. I love when you say we tried this and we tried that. There's so many businesses don't that they just don't dare to try anymore. Is that something that you've encountered as well? It's something that's very prevalent. What I've been talking to people, they
I
don't
think
even try
there's a
anymore.
few, yeah, there's a few definitions of trying, some of which I don't agree with and like. Like, when I hear business owners say they're trying, more often than not, it means they're expending a lot of effort into something that they actually don't have a clear outcome as far as what they want to receive from that effort.
Hmm.
And trying produces a lot of trying. And so I should be more clear with my language. We were testing, like we were testing
Hmm.
different strategies and being curious as to like what is actually producing results versus the energy of trying because trying feels very trying. So
Yeah,
it just feels very trying. It feels hard.
it's
And
true. True, yeah.
when I hear it in other business owners' language, typically it's around like they're doing all of this stuff, but there's a belief system behind it that's making it harder on actually creating those results.
Hmm.
Um, like typically like, oh, business is supposed to be hard and whatnot. So we were testing a lot of different things. We
Hmm.
were playing with like what's going to work and then evaluating based on the results. Now I've been in business. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 19 years old. Like this is my third and
Hmm.
fourth business. So this is not something new to be testing and curious and then look at based on the results and the data of like what you bring from the your mental and spiritual inspiration into the
Hmm.
physical realm. You only know how it's going to be received once you bring it into the physical realm. And
True.
so when I saw things not being received or not working as well, like 20-minute phone calls can work beautifully.
Hmm.
They also can be a great time suck. It just depends on the processes that you have put in place. Like
Yeah.
one of the things that we saw from our testing with doing 20-minute calls during COVID was they were providing a lot of great connection, conversation, just, that I think everybody was so deeply starving for human connection because
Mm.
we weren't able to have it. So it provided that. But when I looked at it from a business perspective, we weren't qualifying our leads as far as like who we were having conversations with. So it was, my calendar was very full, but also I'd much rather if spend my time like with my kid, like
Yeah.
playing than on a bunch of calls that kind of go nowhere or that don't have matching or similar values. And
Hmm.
so we realized, okay, well, we just need to qualify people a little bit better. Great. Okay. So that was fine. And it's fine for leveraging that strategy, but it's looking at what are those tweaks? What are those things that you plan on doing those? Like we still have the podcast still generates revenue. It just wasn't as much as guest podcasting. So we
Hmm.
saw, okay, guest podcasting is going to be our lead generation, and our podcast will be just our community builder for the people that are interested but haven't yet purchased and they still want to be exposed to our world and exposed to the people we bring into our world. That's what our podcast is for. So knowing the intention, it gave us clarity on the intention of what are each of these facets of our business doing.
Hmm. Hmm. Cool. I was thinking of what you just said is the knowing the results and acting on the results is something that I learned the hard way.
Same.
Because when you when you were saying those 20-minute calls, you weren't clearly defining, etc., and spending your time with your kid, and that's a lot more important. I remember, I think the first announcement of COVID, I spent the first week in complete panic because my business was like a month old. I really started at the right time,
Mm.
and that one
Hey,
week I
all the
also.
great businesses were starting during a massive recession. All the ones from a decade ago, they're currently multi-billion dollar industries. I think you
Oh, I've
started at
got
the right
such
time.
beautiful perspective. Thank you very much right now. It is true. It's true what you're saying. It's if the ones that survive after something like that, they usually grow much faster.
Mhm.
But I remember those first weeks. So the first week I spent time with my kids playing in the evening because I thought, okay, something's going to happen. This is the end. We'll just enjoy as much as we can, and not going to the fear mode, but going to enjoy our family. We were just the four of us enjoying that. And then I was like, okay, but now the second week is like, bread on the table. Yeah, well, my wife worked, so she had an income, but of course, I kind of calculated on two people working, so you have a lot of more expenses than that. And we had a couple of good systems here in Belgium that saved us. But I digress. In essence, what I did was that second week I started doing networking. All these online networking moments where they spent like an hour with 50
Mhm.
people on the screen. They just put you in breakout rooms in Zoom, and everybody had their 1 minute kind of BNI story, pitch away everybody. And I learned to use a lot more strategy there, where I ended up being always the last person to speak. And of course, what I learned was people don't remember you for what you did. They remember you for how you made them feel. So,
Mm.
like I just did the intro, that's what I usually do. I bring people to the point where they'll, relax. You're sitting here, bang, and they're calming down. And I learned from that. And then from there, I learned how to get these people into a one-on-one conversation. But then it went haywire. It just went all over the place. I spent in calls 2 hours long, wonderful conversations, no problem there. But it went nowhere. No business. It just was people, like you say, connection. They wanted connection. They wanted conversation with somebody else than their partner or their kids. And at some point you were like a therapist that was not being paid. So
Mhm.
I understand, and you start tweaking, and I didn't know it at the time. For me, everything was new, so I needed to learn that. But if you're in business for a while, you probably know a couple of more things. uh, I find indeed the definition of testing is a lot more applicable than trying. I
Right?
was trying,
Yeah.
by the way. You were testing.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing though, when you first start, like for the first year and a half in my coaching business, I made 100 whopping dollars because I was trying, and in an
Mm,
energy of trying, I also was dealing with deep self-limiting beliefs after going through a business buyout from my e-commerce business,
mm,
where I suddenly had 3 months of dealing with lawyers who don't say the nicest thing when you're not on their
mm.
side, and
True.
so bringing up every fear, every limiting belief to try to get me lower my price. Now,
Mhm,
I completely understand from a strategic perspective now in hindsight, like the strategy of that. I also know that I had never faced that in my career. Like I
mm,
have hopped from several different industries, but and just followed my intuition and guidance. And I've always been really audacious when it comes to what I want with business.
mm,
But in that time frame, suddenly that crushed my audacity.
mm,
And I stopped taking risks, and because I was so scared of rejection.
mm. Okay.
And I just did a post about free, and I did a lot of things for free, a lot of free calls, a lot of free
Oh my
content, a lot of free things, freebies, nothing paid, obviously, because $100. Um,
Yeah.
and I saw where my mindset was in such a space of doubt and disbelief in my own abilities.
Mhm,
And so I did a lot of free, and I did a lot of people pleasing because I was so desperately scared of rejection. And
mhm,
it was in
mhm.
that time that I realized how hard I was trying. I mean, my husband had a joke that I couldn't sit down within 15 minutes of a show without whipping out open my laptop. Like, and he wasn't wrong. Like, it's I have no idea what the hell I was doing though for that year and a half. It was then when I
Mhm,
found out I was pregnant with my first son that I just was like, okay, rubber hits the road. I actually need to turn this into a business or just quit because
yeah.
this is ridiculous.
Mhm,
And that was when I got certified in NLP, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, and then actually went and did the thing that was scaring me the most, which is what I found. Your growth is always going to be on the other side of the thing that you're avoiding.
That is
And
so
so,
true.
yeah, during COVID, I wasn't avoiding having conversations that could lead to a sales conversation. And I wasn't avoiding also holding my boundaries with like time and saying like, okay, this is a 20-minute call. This is all we're going to
Mhm.
accomplish in 20 minutes. And I'm going to respect your time and I'm going to respect my time.
Mhm.
Because sometimes we can have those calls that kind of like go over. And especially during those times, because you're like, guy just can be on a Zoom call for eternity.
Yes. Yeah, I remember one call that felt like eternity. I
Yeah.
think I even
Yeah.
stopped
And
with a technical issue or something just to get
yeah.
off
And
it.
that's where you just gotta, you gotta allow yourself to not be liked
Mhm.
and
That is a very good point. That
be
is a
in the
very good
space of
point.
not being the nice person or being perceived as the nice person. You can say it nicely. I've
Mhm.
loved our conversation, but it's just like ending a date where you're like, is this going anywhere? Like, it's like, I
Yeah.
love your conversation. I think there's a lot of possibility here, but
Mhm.
I just don't think this is going to be going anywhere for right now. So I just want to respect your time. I want to respect my time. And I've got to go build Legos with my kids. That's my priority.
Mhm, mhm. So just for the audience who just jumped into the podcast, we're not finalizing the podcast. You're just
No,
explaining
no, no,
what.
we're not finalizing it. No, no, no. That was just an example of holding a boundary because so often it's,
Absolutely.
especially with very generous entrepreneurs and heart-led entrepreneurs, like
Mhm.
we want to please people and we want to be liked and we want to have that space, but paid is not always going to be liked. Paid will
Mhm.
sometimes give you pushback.
Yeah.
Free is always liked. It's not always valued. Paid is valued.
Very, very true. Yeah. I think recently I had a very specific situation that kind of tested my boundaries as well. I had a conversation with somebody on WhatsApp saying, I've got this new service that I'm launching, and I want you to be a part of it because I think you're the perfect fit for this story for the first couple of months. Otherwise, you're gonna have to pay full price, and this is on a reduced price, blah blah blah. And I told her, we're gonna meet. When do you have time? And she's like, well, conversation was kind of going all over the place. No, I need somebody to listen. This and I answered is like, okay, does a friend listen to you? Yes. Does a friend clearly and unlimitedly asks you the difficult questions, the annoying questions to push you forward into that pain so you can get through there, blah blah blah. I was doing all this on WhatsApp. My wife was sitting next to me. What the hell are you doing? And I'm like, going all the way. And and at final point I said, okay, we'll meet Thursday evening, 7 p.m. You will call me. I wanted her to call me because I was like, this is something I am offering you, which is a very big gift. I was gonna do half price because I always wanted her to do something like this and help her. And she didn't call. So I called her from the car just to confirm, in a couple of hours we'll meet up. Okay, yeah, I'll call you. And then 7 o'clock, I was sitting here waiting. And I'm like, no, this is not nice. And with all the love in my heart to that one person, absolutely, there's no harm done. But I'm like, this is testing me in the level of, am I keeping the word for myself? Yes, I am, because she called about 15 to 20 minutes later and I didn't pick up the phone because I thought, no, 7 p.m. is 7 p.m. I have my time. I have my family time. I'm taking my time with my family. Stepped out of the room here, went back downstairs, drank a glass of water, came up here, started gaming again. But anyway,
But you've
I
held the
broke a boundary.
boundary.
I
And
broke a boundary.
and that's the point. It's like I think big queen energy. This is someone who doesn't have to justify why. And whether it is nice person programming, or I see this more often with women than with men, but still men experience it too.
Mhm,
Um, of that, just like, oh, I feel like I need to justify why I'm not picking up the phone. It's like, no,
mhm.
if you set the appointment and they didn't show up,
Yeah.
there's until like 15 minutes later, there's no reason that you need to justify as to why you're not going to extend the amount of time.
Mhm.
There's no reason. Like a big queen energy doesn't have to justify that. If it was Oprah, you would take the call.
Oh
Like
yeah.
if it was Oprah saying, hey, you need to show up at 7:00
Hmm.
a.m.,
Hmm.
be there for the recording. Here's the
Hmm.
directions. And
Hmm.
you're like, no, I'm tired. And you roll in at like 7:15 and you're like, oh, sorry, oh, like,
That would not happen.
no, that
But
would
it's
not
true. It's so
happen.
true.
No, because
Yeah.
there's a level of respect. And until you start treating yourself and others with that level of respect, you're not going to open the doors for those opportunities, those bigger opportunities to walk through, because you're
Hmm.
not sending that energetic signal to the universe that
Hmm.
you are at that vibratory level where you keep your own dang commitments.
Yes, indeed. And that is so, you know, nail on the head. I cannot express it better than that. And it's the same thing when I heard my coach a couple of weeks ago. She was explaining on the no word. She said, no is a chapter, no is a sentence. And she was standing there, and there was like, she was explaining this whole situation. And the call started where she was explaining, and yes, the call started, and halfway the call, she just said no, and she went silent. So the whole group of people were sitting there, and everyone's like anticipating what's next, what she's gonna explain. She's like, a whole minute she didn't say a word. Everybody was like, something happened to her? Is she just zone out or something or whatever? And after a minute she says, that's it. You have to learn to say no and nothing more. No is no. And it helps with kids, it helps with dogs and cats, it helps with
Yeah.
whatever, that you want to be nice and clearly firm that this is the situation, there is nothing to be explained after this one word. And I've learned that so harshly, because I'm
Hmm.
a pleaser. Absolutely, absolutely, I'm a pleaser.
Yeah.
I try to help everybody that I can, and I've lost a lot of energy, and a lot of money as well, basically. I think I've told you in our conversation that I deleted my Facebook account with like
Yep.
50,000, 60,000 euros or something. Yeah, I lost a lot of people from that, and a couple of people still got connected again when they found out I had another profile. But it's something that you need to do for yourself and clearly state that you do not accept it anymore, that somebody takes your time. And it is the most valuable thing, by the way.
Hmm.
Money is something, but time that is limited. Money is
Yeah.
not limited.
Yeah. Yeah. Money. I always say you can always make more money. You can never make more time.
Exactly. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, and we don't know what amount of time we have on this planet.
Hmm.
And I want to be sure that when I spend that time, that I spend it wisely, because, and that's why when people are like, oh, it's something that's for free and I'm like, but they're still spending their time. And if they are showing up and they are spending their time and they are intentional about this, I was in a mastermind just the other day, and there was a woman who was delivering these amazing presentations and these great coaching workshops where she was getting people crying, and they're investing their time. They're showing up lines out the door, like to wait for her to speak after, to talk with her personally. But she was not making any sales from these
Right.
workshops. And she's like, well, maybe then I do another free class. I was like, no, 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 no. They've already spent the time. They've already
Mhm.
invested the time. It's now time to invest the dollar,
Mhm.
because that we do a certain amount of free things in both of my companies. We have heaps of freebies and great freemium products. We have freemium podcasting parties and experiences that people can go to, and they're wonderful. And I'm very clear, like, these lead to, if you like this, then you'll like this.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
this leads to a paid thing. If you like being a part of this and you think that spending your time in this way is valuable, then
Mhm.
you're going to love spending your time and your money then in this space. But people are so much easier to spend their time. I'm shocked. Like for me, I find I really judge things through the lens of time
Mhm.
versus through the lens of money. Like, I just had the download while I was in LA at a podcasting conference, and I was at this at the gym, and I was like, oh my gosh, I really deeply miss having an elliptical. And instead of like waiting and delaying and spending the time thinking about, oh, let me just like budget for this and think of this, I'm like, I know having this elliptical will like make triple my productivity. I know that having this will allow me to show up in a much better way for my kids. It would be ridiculous to waste the time to not go buy this as soon as I get back into Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly what I did. Now, the old version of me would not have done that. I would have delayed. I would say, oh, well, I'll wait for a sale or I'll wait for a better thing. Now, there was a sale going on because, manifested it. But, but
By the way.
like we do. But
Mm-hmm.
there is a power in decisiveness
Mm-hmm.
of what you choose to decidedly spend time, energy, money on. It is your life force that you're giving to it. And that's why, like Nico, like us having this conversation is so valuable, and podcasting is so valuable, because when you learn how to value your time to that level and you're meeting with other people who also value their time, then
Mm-hmm.
you have this epic conversation in the span of the time that you're engaging together. And so, of course, something is going to develop out of that. Whatever, I don't know what it's going to be, but it's something can manifest from this
Absolutely.
space. Like maybe me visiting Belgium with my family.
If you do, call me. I will be your guide, and you will go the whole country. Absolutely,
See,
I've done it
we
before.
already have travel plans. Like,
Yeah,
even
there you
if
go.
it's just that, like that's the beautiful power of investing your time into building quality relationships
Mm-hmm.
and seeing that there is a mutual respect for your mutual values.
It's absolutely true. That's one of the things that I've started to enjoy doing these podcasts, is just to find and listen to the people that join, because I think since we met, I think I've had 4 or 5 people additionally, getting into the schedule. A couple of them just want to meet up first, and so it's one of the things that I wanted to mention as well. When we had our conversation before, we had 30 minutes, and you held to those 30 minutes, and that's something that was I was hoping to instill in my life, and saying I'm holding to, clearly holding to the time that we plan with each other. And I found that all the people that I've talked to in the recent couple of months, they all 30 minutes, and they don't spend longer. And I'm like, wow, this is so invigorating. Actually, you're gaining energy by not doing something, which is it's just kind of reversed. Usually you just, you go for a walk and get energy out of that, or eat or whatever. And this is like you're not doing it, and you're getting energy. And that's amazing.
Mhm.
So it's a completely other mindset. I think it's an entrepreneur's mindset as well, that adds to that you know exactly what you want. We both know what we want to do. We want to grow. We want to be enough for a family. We want to be enough for our customers, and that's clear. It's a message. I've said I only want to work with 9 to maximum 18 people, but I'm really talking maximum 18 people in a year means really stretching. I only want 9 customers, because I want to be there for them. If they
Mhm.
call, I will pick up. Of course, not on the weekends, but there are limits. But and not when I'm in my bath or something like that. There are limits. But
Exactly.
you really get it very clearly in your head on what you want to deliver for people, and who you want to be for yourself. That's always the first start, and that's something that I've learned 2 years ago. It's me first, and it's not egotistical. It has nothing to do with being egotistical. It has to do with self-care, being clear on your energy, being clear on the messages that you send out to all the people that you know. Even my family knows I've decided to go with a high-end coach this year. I told them parties and all that stuff, I will not be there, or it would be something exceptional. And a lot
Mhm.
of friends, I'm in a couple of secret organizations as well. I told them, oh, brothers, I will not be there. I don't have the time. I'm a high-level commander. I also have responsibilities. I told them I will not be there. And they're like, wow, this is the first time we hear you say this. I'm like, Yeah, because I know now what I need to do and what choices I need to make. It's just
Okay, we gotta though rewind to like the secret organizations piece. I'm very fascinated by this.
thank you, man.
Like you
Yeah.
can't just drop that bomb and then just not like you're leaving it
For people
lingering for
listening to the
me.
podcast, when they're listening to the podcast to this point, we're like, I think almost 50 minutes in, I can tell you something. I am in secret organization. No, I'm a Templar and I'm a Freemason. That's as simple as that. I am allowed to say that. I'm not allowed to say who else is in there, but it's amazing. It
Mhm.
also adds to um, it's kind of a feeding ground for my own services because I'm confident to CEOs and founders. To me, secrecy is something that is holy and it's fundamentally drilled into my blood. And
Mhm.
no, we do not do things with goats, and no, we do not kill anybody. No, I can say as much.
I just think of the like I mean we have goats, so I'm like, oh, things with goats. What
No,
rumors have been going around about that?
yeah, just don't read the wrong books. It's as simple as that.
Gotcha.
No,
Gotcha. And
indeed.
I love that. I think that that's so necessary is having secret organization or not, like having a level of discernment about what you share and what you do not share.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think that that is super key because especially people love to do the name dropping of all the things,
Yep.
especially being someone who comes from LA. So that the power of like the discernment of like what do you share and having those boundaries. And I think and I see how it can serve in your business as well, like not only just by proximity, but also in the fact that it elevates an energetic masculine boundary of like, here is my boundaries, here's my parameters. I can share this,
Hmm.
but this is as far as I share. Like there's certain things about my kids, like I am horrified by people who like no judgment, but also horrified by people who are like sharing videos of their kids like on the toilet or like doing like that challenge that wasn't even a challenge. It was just an asshole move of like the parents smashing an egg on the kid's face
Yeah.
when they're like, it was something going on TikTok like about a year ago. And I was like, what a way to break your kid's trust.
Yeah.
Like that
Exactly.
just is a dick move. Like if you want to get me to curse, like that will get me there.
That's the
Um,
trigger. That's the trigger
that's the
right there.
oh
Okay.
boy, that is the trigger. Will get activated around like with children, if like hurt anything that hurts children
Hmm.
or could like damage trust, like ooh, mama bear is gonna come out.
And she's got claws.
She's got claws. So don't mess.
Yeah,
But
nobody's
like I
seeing this,
just
but
think
I
that
do
there's like
actually see claws on those nails.
yeah, right. I think that there is something that is we don't know where our like my kids are a part of my branding. They definitely they get paid by my company. They are a part of my branding. They
Mhm.
um I was a part of my family's branding as a child. Like I grew up and every year we would do the company Christmas card. And we did
Mhm.
that for 30 years. And my parents had a small arborist business in LA and they had customers who saved those Christmas cards for 30 years. But the
Okay.
thing is like now with social media, like some people don't know where a line is or
Mhm.
maybe don't forecast into the future as far as like maybe this might impact my kid when they're in high school getting bullied and the
Mhm.
bully is pulling up the video of me smashing an egg on their face.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. Mhm.
I think there are certain boundaries with privacy, both with being a coach just in general. Like I have had my clients share a very pretty much everything except for murder with me.
Okay. Okay, that's a that's
Uh,
that's a very big line there.
uh, like,
Mhm.
yeah, th- there like there is a lot of there's things from just very personal things of like their insecurities, their fears, their doubts, to their indiscretions, to things like that, to things they feel shame about. Obviously, if there was something like murder, obviously I would have to report that. but
There
like
is a
that is
moral.
kind of like legalities which we crossed. But
Mhm, mhm. You're not
so
a
just don't murder
psychiatrist.
somebody. I think that's just the basic message. Like don't be an asshole
Is
smashing
that the
eggs
line
on
where
your
you
kid's face. Don't
that's
murder people. There's a line.
that's the line of customers, "You do not do murderers." Okay.
Yeah, there's a line. I have standards, and so I
This is
think
a
that
weird
they're like
message going out into the universe, honestly. Anyway.
it's a very direct message. Like there are certain people. Just, these are the people I will work with. These are the ones I won't. So no judgment, just boundaries.
You can walk through the door, you can explain yourself, and I will show you the door again.
And I will show you the door again. Exactly. I think that I think the biggest thing, no matter what, like for me, is the value of ownership.
Mhm,
And even if you do have stuff in your past that you are ashamed of or that you did, if you own the fact that you did that and
mhm,
it's out there and you're taking ownership and accountability and not repeating that,
mhm.
I can work with that. But if you
Yeah.
don't own it and you still are still hiding from it and running from it, that's where there's an issue.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely right. At some point you just have to make it clear. That's that's it. So,
Yeah.
Kimberly, I got
So no
one
murderers.
question. Sorry?
So no murderers who do stuff with goats.
Okay, this conversation is gonna get very very interesting. Uh, Goats, no murderers. Okay, secret societies. We're gonna end up
We're
in
just going
the
on a whole tangent.
a different category. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so I got one more. I got one more question I really want to ask you. And is if there would be, the last person to listen to our conversation today, what would you love them to tell you right now?
So I just want to be clear. So if the last person to listen to our conversation today,
Mm-hmm.
what would I love for them to tell me right now?
Mm-hmm.
That they learned something, that they grew, that they laughed, and that they're going to start guest podcasting to grow their business.
Good one. That's a good answer. Thank you very much. Oh, oh my God. If I'm going to listen to this recording, I'm going to be, kind of double playing or whatever. So, Kimberly, where can people find you, and how can they reach you, and what can they reach you for? A lot of stuff has been discussed, but maybe some stuff hasn't been
boy,
discussed
boy has it. If you love this conversation and you enjoy laughter and you take ownership for your life and your past and the things that have happened, and you want to reach that next level of your life and evolution with your business and with having holistic success, then head on over to crownyourself.com and hit the button that says work with me. And if you're interested in getting booked on guest podcasts, on the top 5% of podcasts to grow your business, then head on over to communicationqueens.com and book your 100K profit from guest podcasting planning call with me.
That's amazing news right there. So, listeners, if you're really into podcasting, you want to learn the hot stuff, you just call Kimberly. It's as simple as that. Thank you very much for your time on the podcast today, Kimberly. I had an amazing time. I was kind of expecting it, but I didn't want to push it. But we just had an amazing time. There's a lot of subjects here that might need to be cut out, but I'm not going to. But thank you very much.
You are so welcome. Thank you so much, Nico. This truly was a pleasure and a joy, and definitely not one to be uh definitely one that could tend to clickbaity material, but that when you listen to the long form, you'll understand the joy of this conversation and the power that came from it.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thanks again, Kimberly. And I hope to hear everybody next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Everlasting Podcast. Let me leave you with a few questions to answer in the comments. How do you see the different topics we discussed during this interview? What are your thoughts? What stood out for you? Let us know in the comments or just send us your feedback. We launch new episodes weekly. Don't miss any by ensuring you are subscribed to the show. Click the follow button now. We depend on the organic growth of the podcast to inspire more and more people. So by giving us a 5-star review and sharing this episode with at least one of your friends who might be interested in the subject, you will significantly help more people become inspired. But more than anything, I am grateful to you for taking the time to listen to the show. If you are also a successful CEO, founder, or entrepreneur who has inspiring words to say, feel free to contact us for an interview at contact@nicovandevenne.com. Thank you for listening. We will see you again soon with more inspirational conversations on achieving everlasting fulfillment.